The Beatles Get Back is finally out on Disney Plus, and this is going to be a very different review from normal because I feel like it's going to be a lot longer because I have a lot to say here, and I'm going to give a spoiler warning, but I don't know if I can exactly call it that because everything that happens in this I feel like most Beatles fans know of, so it's not like I'm revealing many things, but I will talk about specific points, so if you have not seen it and you plan to watch it, don't watch the full video. And for those who don't know, The Beatles Get Back is a film pieced together by Peter Jackson and a ton more people, and it shows the creation of Let It Be and partially Abbey Road as well, and it basically takes place in January of 1969. It starts on January 2nd, ends on January 31st, and it shows them attempting to write a bunch of new songs for what starts off as a TV special, and then what kind of becomes a movie, and then, of course, what ends up being the big rooftop performance, and then some of those takes are put onto Let It Be. A bunch of you already know that, but I was super excited for this because obviously the Beatles are one of, if not the greatest band of all time. They are definitely the most important band of all time. At least I think they are. So I was really excited to see this, although I didn't know how long it was going to be, so I did watch it over the past few days. Every single episode I watched within like the span of a day. The first part, the first episode I basically watched in one sitting. Like I watched it, I think I took like a 10-minute break to go like get food or something, finished it. Part 2 was the longest one. It was like 2 hours and 53 minutes or something. First one was like 2.5 hours, third one's like 2 hours 18. You guys again know this if you've seen it, but part 2 I watched like about 60% of, and then had to go do a few things for like a few hours, and then I went back and finished it last night, and then today I watched part 3 all in one sitting. Part 3 is my favorite, and I just really want to talk about this thing because it is probably the most essential rock doc, you could say, when it comes to just real, authentic creation of something, and that's what I love about it. And for those who are new to my channel, I've talked about the Beatles a bunch. I have a Hey Jude shirt on right now. I've actually still not listened to Help and Magical Mystery Tour because I've been meaning to do a video on Help, but I also need to find the movie because I'm going to do the same thing I did with A Hard Day's Night, where I talk about the movie and the album in one, but I've listened to all the other albums countless times, and while watching this, I think like a few days ago, I went back and listened to a lot of Let It Be again, and that album is just so good. It's really grown on me a lot more. I mean, I always liked it. I think I gave it like a 4 out of 5, but it's definitely jumped up. I mean, every single Beatles album I listened to has just gotten better and better and better. Like the first one I talked about was Abbey Road. I know not the best place to start, but it's still my favorite to this day. Closely behind is Rubber Soul, but all of them that I gave like a 4.5 out of 5, it would probably go up to a 5 out of 5. I mean, Abbey Road is obviously a 5 out of 5. It's top 10 albums of all time, and what I really like about this documentary is that you see them perform some of the songs from here, and the part that made me probably smile the most is when Paul started singing Oh Darling for the first time, because as a lot of you probably know, that is my favorite Beatles song. Ever since I listened to Abbey Road for the first time, that is my favorite top 10, top 5 songs of all time for me. I think that is one of the best songs ever. That one, hearing that differently than just the studio version was so special because obviously they didn't perform it live or anything, so hearing a different version of it and hearing them create that song was just, it was just so special to me. When George Harrison brings in Something and you see them working on big songs like Let It Be, you see them play Get Back probably 300 times in this. I'm not kidding. It definitely deserves the title, The Beatles Get Back, because of how many times they play the song. If anybody knows, please comment down below, because you'll either walk out of this having a newfound appreciation for the song, or you won't be able to stand it. Now, I still love the song. It's probably one of my favorites from them, definitely from Let It Be. But the best part about this is seeing how they work and seeing how they craft these songs. I mean, the song Let It Be is one of the most famous songs of all time, obviously. So seeing them start with this, and you know, when Paul sings it differently, it's just like, oh, you're almost there. You're just getting it. I'm looking over at my Abbey Road poster actually, which is kind of just ironic. And it's just so interesting to see them create these songs. The Long and Winding Road is one of my all-time favorite Beatles songs, probably top 10, and they play that one a bunch. So I just love the creation of the songs, but it's also just the process here, because they start off in this like film set place, but then they do obviously end up moving to Apple Studios, like the basement of it, and then of course it ends with them up on the rooftop performing, and I really love seeing the whole concert of that, but I'll talk about that later. And I just loved seeing how songs would start and then the ending, and seeing how different people would put in different parts of here, and it's cool to see how the Beatles work personally, because I'll just go through it. So obviously my favorite Beatle is still Paul. Paul's my favorite one, and he really kind of takes on a leadership role. Sometimes in this it's shown to be negative and like call him out on that. I feel like in this every Beatle has something that's shown that it's just like, it shows their insane talent. They're four of the most talented men out there, but they all have issues, and it's all shown really well here. Paul really shines in this. I think he probably has the most screen time, if you can say that. He definitely talks the most. John is there all the time with Yoko just sitting directly beside him or like touching him, and somehow, because there's the four of them and then Yoko, and the other ones, significant others, will be there, but like Linda will walk around taking pictures, and you'll see the other ones and they always introduce them, so if you're not the biggest Beatles fan, you might not know who they are, but they always say it, so that's what I really enjoy. Like, it says on screen, but Yoko is always there. And there's one moment, it's in part 1, and again, I said spoilers, but it's when George leaves the band, and then they just go fucking insane. They go crazy. Yoko just screams into the microphone. I think Paul might be on the drums, just banging around. John is slamming around on his guitar, and there are definitely times in this documentary where you're like, what the hell am I watching? But that's what's also so fascinating about it. And before anybody asks in the comments, I don't really have that much of an opinion on Yoko. Yeah, I just really don't care to form one, because everybody has different ones. I just don't care to get into that. And then now talking about George. Now George, it's really interesting. He might be the one that I was most interested in seeing in this documentary, because he has like one very famous thing that everyone talks about. Everyone talks about in the review of this. I'm going to say it as well, but he says something along the lines of like, oh, I'll play whatever you tell me to. And you see it here, you see the conversation, and when he leaves, it really shows the impact that he had on the Beatles, but also when he brings in songs like Something or I Me Mine, it's just so awesome to see. And when he's messing around with like a wah pedal and stuff, for me as a guitarist who has a wah pedal, I think he has a song called Wah Wah on his first album, which I haven't listened to yet, but I will definitely do a video on it. I don't know, I feel like I keep saying this, but I found it so intriguing and so interesting. And someone needs to give Ringo a hug, because he barely talks for a lot of this. He probably talks for like 5 minutes out of the whole 7 hours, I bet, if that, because he normally just sits behind the drum set, listens, and then plays when they want to. There'll be times where Paul will try to talk and John will be playing in the first part, I think it is. He's like, John, can you stop playing and pay attention? And Ringo is just there, sitting there not saying anything, and he always looks really sad, which is a little disappointing, because obviously we all love Ringo. He's probably one of my favorite drummers out there. I don't care what people say, he is a human metronome, which is awesome. And also the keyboard player that they bring in, Billy something, I need to know his name. I'll put it on the screen. This guy really elevates. That's what I've heard a bunch of people say, that he elevates the energy, the vibe, whatever you want to say in there. He is awesome. He's always smiling. He's like shredding on the piano, if that makes sense. He's just going at it full on, and it works so well. He was so important to the album. I'm really surprised I haven't heard more about him, considering I've read up on Let It Be and stuff, and even in my videos I don't think there was any mention of him unless I missed it. But he's someone that deserves almost as much credit as the other band members for how Let It Be turned out. Now this review will be longer, as I said, and when it comes to downsides of this, it's Peter Jackson, so it's very long. I mean, I love Peter Jackson. Lord of the Rings is one of the best film trilogies out there. You guys all already know that. I don't really have to say it. But this thing is very long. And I think in the first episode, there's at least 20 minutes. I don't remember the exact part. I wish I did. But there was 20 minutes where absolutely nothing happened. Like, it wasn't even like, oh, I wonder what they're creating. Like, just, I was like, oh my god, can we please have something happen? And the second part is nearly 3 hours long. I think I said it's like 2 hours and 53 minutes or something. So this thing is very, very long, and for those who aren't the biggest Beatles fans, it will be hard to get through. I don't recommend this one to people who do not love the Beatles. Now, a lot of people say they love the Beatles, but if you are really interested in music creation or just the Beatles in general, you will really enjoy this. If you're just the general music lover or audience lover, movie, TV, whatever, you will be bored for some scenes, and I can understand why. I think that part 3 is the best. I think that they get better as they go along, but part 1 and 2 definitely have some moments that can be cut out. But I do have to say, This is insane how it was pulled off. At the start of every episode, I think it says there's like over an hour and 50 or like 150 minutes of footage and like audio recordings. There's even more of that. And that's just crazy to stick that into 7 hours of it. And the quality here, it's up to 4K. And yes, it does look a little blotchy at times, but that's something that I feel stupid for even saying, because that is so impressive that they've done that. Because I saw a comparison between, there's one scene where I think John and Paul are just like messing around with some of like the people doing the sound, and then Paul swears at one of them, and the video I saw on YouTube was like in this like crunchy black and white thing, but while watching it on the TV, it looked just so well, and it also sounds amazing. That's something that really surprised me, is how good this thing sounds. It's just something that I have such respect for the editors as well. If you're still alive and you edited this, thank you so much. And as I said, my favorite part is part 3, and one of the main reasons, I think the main reason, is because it shows a lot of the rooftop concert. Now, I haven't seen like the original Let It Be documentary from like 1970 or whenever it was released, 71 or whatever, but I've seen many clips of the rooftop performance, especially like Don't Let Me Down, I think is on the Beatles YouTube channel, but I really just wanted to see the full thing, and the way they show it here is so cool, because they have, I think, 5 or 6 cameras up on the rooftop. They have one across the street, and then like 3 or 4 on like the streets, kind of following everybody and asking them what they think. And I almost decided on making a video completely just about this, but I'm just going to talk about it now. I love seeing the different angles of them up on the roof, but what's more interesting is seeing what's going on in the streets, because a lot of people are like, oh yeah, I love this. This is the Beatles, wow, because it was like their first public performance in years. It's one of the most famous concerts ever, one of the best, probably just because of how important and shocking it was, because nobody knew about it. But I think my favorite moment throughout the entire thing is when some like rich, snooty like business people start complaining, and then the cops and like, the well, you could say stereotypical, but the hats with the straps and stuff that go to here, they start showing up. I was laughing a little bit because of that, because I'm Canadian, so that just looks silly to me. And one starts like eating the strap at one point, which is just so weird. But basically, they're sent inside like the building, and there's like a hidden camera filming everything. There's also another hidden thing I'll talk about in a little bit. And then when they finally get on the roof, I think my favorite thing, I think it happened at exactly the 2-hour mark. They're singing one of the songs. It was probably either Get Back or Don't Let Me Down, because again, they performed those so many times. But Paul looks back, he sees one of the cops, and then he goes, ooh, and like just goes like, ooh, and makes like this sound. And he constantly, it was Get Back, because every time he said Get Back, he would turn and look at them, which was pretty funny. And I think the funniest part of the entire rooftop performance is when they go, and I think it was Mal, I think he turns off both of George's and John's amps, and then George walks over and turns his back on and just keeps playing. I think John does the same, just because they're like, no, we're gonna do this, we want to finish it. And the other hidden thing, as I mentioned, is there's a conversation between Paul and John, which is recorded by a mic hidden in like a plant, and it's them after George left. And it's just like, it's so crazy that we're gonna be seeing these things, and it shows like the text on screen and stuff. You can always tell what's going on because they subtitle it really well. Like, I don't watch stuff with subtitles on if it's in English or whatever, but if you can't tell what's happening, it'll automatically say like Paul and then have the subtitles on. Films normally do that. Films and TV, they all normally do that. So I found that really interesting. And the last thing I'll mention, I know this review is very long, but what's so cool is to see how many times these guys messed around but still got so much done. The amount of work they got done, art they got done, I could say, in these 3 weeks is crazy, because a lot of it is just them messing around, singing stuff really weirdly in different voices and singing like this through their teeth, and warping their voices and stuff, or literally yelling into the microphone, whether that's John, Paul, or even Yoko when the odd time she'll talk. It's just surprising to see how much they got done. They play a ton of covers and they know them all really well. I knew a few of the covers. They play a lot of Chuck Berry and stuff like that. Some of them I didn't know, but overall, this documentary is just fantastic. I don't know how they managed to create it, but I'm just so glad they did. The Beatles Get Back shows a lot more than a day in the life with the Beatles by showing basically 3 weeks in the making of not only one, but two of their biggest albums, Let It Be and Abbey Road. The rooftop performance is obviously iconic, but this documentary shows a lot more than that, with intimate conversations between band members and producers, and there are so many moments that will leave you shocked. If you are a big fan of the Beatles, or you have a deep appreciation for creation of art or just music in general, I highly recommend this one. I'm going to give the Beatles Get Back a 4.5 out of 5. I really love this. I think that it is fantastic. It is not for everybody. There are definitely slow moments, and even for me, as a massive fan of the Beatles and just music and stuff like this, movies and TV, just creation and art in general, entertainment, whatever you want to say, I did find some slow moments, but I do highly recommend this one. I think that it's not one where you're like, oh, I'm gonna fall asleep, I'm so bored. Maybe it was just because I watched it sometimes late at night, but I never fell asleep watching this. I was basically always interested in what was going on. Again, as I said, there was like the 20 minutes in the first one. But anyway, I'm going to stop rambling on now. What is your favorite song from Let It Be? For me, it is The Long and Winding Road. I want to know all that stuff down below. Who's your favorite Beatle? As I said, mine is Paul. Have you seen this fully? And thank you all for watching. I'll see you guys next time. Over and out.